Fire prevention this week started with the Great Chicago Fire 100 years ago, so they saw a need to recognize the fire safety and fire education in the United States with the fire they had in Chicago that many years ago. So with that, well, I'm here today to give you a little of our knowledge, my knowledge of background with fire and the training we've done and what we do with the young kids in school every year with training them, and brought this idea up to educate the public more if you haven't been educated or been in school for a while to know the differences. And fire changes. Fire's not the same as it was 30 years ago, and we'll get into that. It's a whole different animal nowadays than it used to be 30 years, 40 years ago. So, start off with, I guess fire doesn't care how old you are, how young you are, how rich you are, how poor you are. You can have a brand new $1 million house, and if it's not right, it's gonna burn. It doesn't have to be the 200-year-old shack in the middle of town, and it doesn't matter if you're 18 or if you're 12 or if you're 97. If you got a fire, it's gonna do what it wants to do. So, some of what we teach the young kids in school when they come up today with that. Anybody heard of the acronym EDITH, which is Exit, Drill, in the Home, is what we teach the kids. And we push on that pretty hard of, you need to practice this. We talk about it in school, but take it home with mom and dad and practice getting out of your house. It's not like getting up on Monday morning and brushing your teeth and going to work and everything else. When it happens at 2 in the morning, there's a whole different routine of how to get out of your house safely. And you don't have time, and I got some videos that's gonna really highlight that. If you don't have time, you don't have time to go get the scrapbook or the computer or the picture or whatever. You need to get out, and that's more today than it's ever been, and we'll get into that more later. But exit drill in the home. Every room that is a sleeping room in the house has to have at least 2 ways out by law for the nation, United States, Iowa, wherever. If you have a bedroom that doesn't have a window in it, or a second way out, it's basically against the law. Because if a fire happens on the other side of that door and that door is the only way out, smoke alarm can wake you up, but unless you're Superman, you're not going through the fire. So with that, how many, what's your normal routine to get out of bed in the morning? Alarm clock goes off and you get out of bed and do what?
Get a cup of coffee.
Correct, but way before that, when you get out of bed, everybody's normal thing is to stand up. When your house is on fire, you do not want to stand up. Heat and fire goes up. And there's been people around the country that the fire alarm woke them up, they got out of bed and they stood up as normal and took a breath of the superheated air, melted their lungs, and they were dead laying 1 foot away from the side of the bed because they stood up. So understand the heat and the smoke is up. So how many people practice rolling out of bed to the floor and crawling to the door? Everybody, human nature, we're creatures of habit. Get out of bed and go to the back door or the front door, the door that you don't normally go in and out of at 2 in the morning or 10 o'clock before you go to bed. Go to bed, roll out of the bed and crawl to the opposite door that you normally use. So some things you practice just that you normally don't do, because we've seen this and that and everything of people in the panic situation when the smoke alarm goes off and they're trying to call 911 at 2 o'clock in the morning and your head is spinning every which direction and wrong addresses and this, that, everything is. So it's sometimes a challenge for us getting where we're supposed to go because we're not getting the right address because they're in such a panic state that they're saying the address where they used to live or grandpa's address or whatever, that it just, it's not natural to be able to do that. Anybody sleep upstairs? 2-story upstairs, okay? How do you go down the steps? In a fire situation, do not walk down the steps. What are you doing? Standing up. Also, when you're in that hysteric state and there's smoke in the room and everything else, the chance of you tripping and stumbling down the steps, we don't want somebody injured, hurt, laying at the steps because we stumbled and fell. So we tell the little kids, in a fire situation, you're already on the ground, you're gonna crawl backwards down the steps. So you're going feet first, crawling backwards down the steps. If I slip and miss a step, I'm only falling this far. I'm not falling head over feet down the steps and end up with a broken neck or a broken leg, laying there suffering in the smoke and in the fire. So some things most people don't think about, but we know we do, and just getting the information out there that it's not like getting up on Monday morning and going to do what everybody does. So, oh, let's see. Smoke alarms, more laws and codes. It is code to have a smoke alarm on every floor of your house, basement, main floor, upstairs, and in every sleeping quarters. It's the new fire codes. That's just, and you'll see why when I show you some videos and stuff like that. But we're gonna get into some of the videos and be able to show why I'm talking about what I'm talking about, because you don't have time in the new fires and stuff that are out there. But we're gonna get into fire extinguishers and stuff like that later. But first I have to instruct you and teach you about fire, to understand fire, what it's doing, what it's not doing, and different things about fire with that. Basically, heat and smoke goes up, so it's gonna go to the ceiling of the room. And then once it can't go up anymore, it starts going out. When it can't go out anymore, it starts to come down. Heat rises, so the heat's gonna go up to here, and it's gonna spread out 2 inches thick or whatever on the ceiling. When it can't go any further out here, the only place the heat has to do is come down like this. So you'll see fire lines in rooms where they've had burn lines that are 4 feet down or 5 feet down, where the heat line was that melted paint or whatever, and things we use to investigate fires. But how it's important to stay down where it's cool, out of the smoke, out of the heat, where you can see and not be in the heat and stuff like that. So same thing we do with fire department. I mean, we've got all the gear on, the SCBA and everything else that we wear, and we're still crawling on our hands and knees, because the gear we got's good, but there's a limit to everything. So it's, you know, kind of stay out of what you can stay out of, and stay down where you can see. With that, I'm gonna change in some videos, if I remember. Some of these I could preload, some I can't, so I'm gonna have to jump through. Just come up. This writing must be a little slow. This first one, again, understanding fire, and I'm leading you into talking about fire extinguishers. We're gonna get there a little bit later this afternoon. We're gonna go over to the fire station, whoever wants to, everybody can, no problem. We're actually gonna use a fire extinguisher if you haven't had one. There's multiple different kinds of fire extinguishers, and again, you have to understand the fire. And that's where I'm going with this first video here, of understanding the fire and the type of fire that you're fighting, and not all extinguishers work on all fires.
If your chip pan catches fire, don't panic. Just follow these instructions. 1. Turn off the heat. 2. Run a cloth under a tap and wring it out. 3. Cover the pan and then wait until it's cooled right down. Don't try and move the pan, and whatever you do, don't throw water over the fire. The effects can be devastating.
That's this lady's sponsor, kind of sponsored her in part of that, because that's what she did, and she's trying to put her kitchen fire out and didn't understand the fire and burned her face. Oil, fuel, liquid, all that stuff is lighter than water. So if you throw water on it, the water's going to the bottom of the pan, the oil's coming up, floating on top. When the oil runs over top of the pan, your fire is 5, 6, 8 times worse than what it was when you threw the water up there. We had a house fire probably 15, 20 years ago. The person tried to grab the pan and run outside with it. While their arms getting hot, and they jerked the pan, went like this, and threw it all over the kitchen. Next thing, the whole place on fire. So it's hard to do that if you're not used to it or whatever, but stay calm, don't panic, and think, and don't just react or act to what you think's going on. But kitchen fires are fairly common, and being able to handle them, or handle them right, is really important. play this without quite so much speaker here. You can
If
wind
your
it
tip pan catches fire, don't panic. Just follow these instructions. 1. Turn off the heat. 2. Run a cloth under a tap and wring it out. 3. Cover the pan and then wait until it's cooled right down. Don't try and move the pan, and whatever you do, don't throw water over the fire.
and that's how fast it happens. That's real time. So, but they say baking soda, I've seen too, if you got hot pad mittens or whatever on, just take a plate that's big enough to cover the pan and slide a plate over it, and you can take the heat away from the fire. A school teacher's late.
Mom came in.
Good afternoon.
I was entertaining a man at my house.
Oh. That's all I need to know.
Dave Heeler.
Oh, no. Not him.
No. You haven't missed too much yet. Some of this you've seen. I did a presentation, I don't know how long ago, or maybe it was the Women's Club or something. Some of these videos we've talked about, but getting into that part of understanding the fires, how they change and how fast it is. And fire is very fast in most situations, and it's getting faster every day with what we're hauling into our houses. So, let me close this one. I'm gonna go to this one. Maybe some of you've seen, maybe you haven't, but this is a lot of these are UL, which is Underwriters Laboratory, that do a lot of tests and studies and give a lot of information out. And they do test burns and different things with fires and all kinds of stuff. So they test basically everything in the world. But this one is basically testing the difference between closing your doors at night when you sleep, especially your bedroom door, or in general just doors throughout the house. And this is a fire room that they set up. Most of these you can go on the internet and YouTube and
This is safe for sleeping with the doors open.
start that over.
That is insane.
In the event of a fire, who here thinks that you're safer sleeping with the doors open?
I keep them open because I was a mom for so long.
My kid's room is 2 doors down from mine, always open.
I'm not all that confident they would stop anything anyway. Harold, hey, Ben, nice to meet you. Harold, have a seat.
Hi. Hello, right here.
Chris, Jory.
Great.
As you think about fire safety, what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. I probably don't think about a fire threat as much as I should because I do forget to turn things off.
I don't know how to get the background down.
Fire?
We told you that you'd be coming here today for discussion, but what we didn't tell you is that there is also a demonstration that we want to show you. Sound good?
I want to introduce you to Steve, the director of the UL Firefighter Safety Research Institute. I'll let Steve take it away.
Welcome. My job is to lead a team of people that study how fire grows and spreads so we can keep you safe. Here at the Delaware County Emergency Services Training Center, we essentially turn this place into a laboratory. We've got several structures around here that we build to simulate where you live. And one of those structures is right here behind me. What I want you to do is I want to take you inside here, and I want you to see how this looks like your home. And then once we get you outside, we're going to go ahead and recreate what would happen if there was a fire in this structure right here. Look pretty normal? Yeah, got some furnishings. You'll notice the difference down here as we walk down. want you to do is pay attention to the comparison of the two of those and think about you and your family trying to survive this fire. All right, we just hit the button, we have ignition.
The one bedroom doors, they lighting a fire in the kitchen, they got a hallway, the fire's gonna go down. The door closest to the fire is shut, and the door down the hall furthest away from the fire is open. If you got that, they kinda skip over that kinda quick. There's the fire in the couch out in the living room, kitchen area.
Oh boy, here she goes. Oh man, that is scary. It's scary.
It's about 10 minutes into the starting the fire. This is pretty much real time, not fast forwarded.
Furnishings that are in our homes today are made of synthetic materials, so they burn so much faster than your old natural cotton-filled furnishings used to be. The statistics that we've seen through our research is in about
There's at the end of the hall already.
17 minutes to get out of your house.
There's the other end of the room.
Now you have less than 3 minutes.
Yeah, see, this is what this is the things that we were. Whoa.
Let me back this up just a little bit. The bedroom picture.
Filled furnishings used to be. The statistics that we've seen through our research is in about 40 years ago.
You're still alive in that room, but not much longer.
The smoke alarm sounded. Now you have less than 3 minutes.
Yeah, see, this is what this is the things that we were.
That room you're not. Here's the second bedroom. Right there now, if the smoke alarm isn't waking you up, you're becoming unconscious with the smoke content in that room. You're starting to starve for oxygen in that room, and it's been about 1.5 minutes since they lit that couch on fire.
Whoa.
The kitchen room just flat, that's called flashover, when the whole room ignites like that. That room's about 1200 degrees. You will not stand that in fire gear.
All right, as you remember,
That's kind of the picture of what we
closed
see.
door on the left, open door on the right. And you can see the dramatic difference between the two with the
Back up just no, not
So you remember, closed door on the left, open door on the right.
Which one of those 2 bedrooms you want to be sleeping in?
Yeah.
So try and get my point. Sometimes to get your point across, you gotta try and scare people a little bit, but, that's just it's not a solid door like these doors in the library are. That's a hollow core, hollow in the center, 1/8 of an inch veneer on each side, a little bit of wood in the center, but, the amount of smoke and heat that door closed made the difference in there. That's helping the fire department too. You are more survivable to give us time to get to you, to get you out of that. We're probably gonna come out the window, but you're gonna be alive. This bedroom right here, if you were in this room, you're not gonna be here. There's enough smoke and heat damage in that room that if your fire alarm didn't get up and you were in there for that last 30, 40 seconds, why, you're probably too late.
And you can see the dramatic difference between the two with the simple closed door.
The heat and charring clear down here, you can see where it's cooking the moisture out of the sheetrock and the water's running down the wall, the paint, melting the stuff on the dresser.
And what that simple barrier can provide to you and your family should you have a fire.
There's the living room.
I want you guys to throw some hard hats on and some safety glasses and at least poke your head to the windows, or you can even walk in the hallway if you want.
That's about 1.5 minutes short, 2 minutes of fire in that living room.
Anxiety. Right now.
Terrifying. I really didn't expect anything like this.
A little bit of smoke seeping around the corners of the door, probably enough to set a smoke alarm off in this room.
With the doors open or the doors closed? Without a doubt, the door closed.
Definitely with the doors closed, and from now on, the doors will be shut at night.
Definitely closed.
Closed.
Definitely closed. And I'm surprised by it.
It's always great to be able to get the message out, where we can take our research and get it out into the community to change behavior with the message of close before you doze. It feels great, and hopefully we can save lives. If
If there was one bit of advice that you could give friends or family today, what would it be?
Close before you doze.
Close before you doze.
Close before you doze. Close before you doze.
Close before you doze. The key fire safety messages we want people to have are, one, have working smoke alarms in every level of your home, inside and outside every sleeping room. We want everybody to have an escape plan. Should you have a fire, you should know how to get out quickly. And if you can't get out quickly, having a closed door between you and where that fire is critical to your survival.
Any questions with that? Did that surprise anybody? Some people think just those little light flimsy doors don't do anything. They're a lot more than you think. They're gonna burn through faster than a solid door like these are, but I'm pretty sure these library doors got this heavy commercial door. They got like a 2-hour rating that'll take fire 2 hours to burn through them. But there's a stamp and a code on the back side of the door. But the difference is in that, and now getting into the difference of what we had 30 years ago to what we got today, and how the fires are changing faster, hotter, less time for you, less time for the fire department. This again is a UL test lab that does a lot of testing that they can do and put on video. What I can tell you about, but showing you the video is and this is comparing the difference between a furnished home 30, 40 years ago and a furnished home today. The difference we had back, not picking on Carrie, but back when Carrie was on the fire department, most people had wool, cotton, couches and chairs and stuff like that. The couch had the old wire springs to hold you up. Now everybody's got the soft foam rubber, styrofoam, you know, whatever, couch cushions that are more cushy. They call it overstuffed couches and that. And this is gonna show you the difference. They're gonna put a soldering iron in, 2 couches in, and light this and just show the difference. Rooms of identical size contain similar material except for the couches and stuff like that. They're both ignited at the same time. The fire grows until it's what we call flashover, and that's at 1200 degrees. So the synthetic on your right and the natural cotton, wool type older furniture on the left. The cotton and the wool takes off a little faster and it kind of deceives you a little bit, but is there much smoke being produced by a little fire? Okay, now look at the synthetic. The foams and the polyesters and there's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. It gets to 3 and that room's about unsurvivable in 3 minutes after that cigarette or whatever it was in the couch. That smoke layer's getting down to about 4 feet. You're probably close to about 150 degrees on the floor by now. There's 4 minutes and there's no way you're alive in that room with the heat that's in there. Right there is flashover. 4 minutes and 50 seconds, that room went to 1200 degrees. They stopped that one, they let this one go on the natural. The curtain's burning, you can still get up in there and walk out. You don't have the smoke. There's 16 minutes in that room. 26 minutes in that room with what we used to have back in the 60s and the 50s, and there's 30 minutes. Now it's starting to be questionable if you're survivable in that room. There's getting some smoke in there. You still don't have much heat. It's we call a cold fire, a cold and smoky fire, but 30 minutes into that Any questions? It's kind of self-explanatory, but, that's not the video I want.
We want everybody to have an escape plan. Should you have a fire, you should know how to get out quickly. And if you can't get out quickly, having a closed door between you and where that fire is critical to your survival.
Again, understanding the differences between, the fires, what we have now and what we don't have. The latest studies I've heard, the, overstuffed couch, a normal couch with the synthetic and the foam mattresses and stuff in there, that one couch, if that's the only thing in the room that's burning, there's enough heat energy in that one couch. If you put it in this room with nothing else in here but that one couch, it would put this size of a room to 1200 degrees in about 3.5 minutes. So a lot there to understand what we're doing, what we're not doing. Every time we go to Menards or Walmart or wherever, we bring home another bag of plastic or styrofoam, whatever. I mean, we've got plastic silverware, plastic plates, plastic bag this or plastic everything. I wasn't real happy. I didn't make a big deal about it, but 6-8 years ago, our church decided we're not gonna use the old folding tables and chairs anymore in the basement. We decided we're gonna get these new lightweight plastic that are more comfortable and everything else. I said, you understand what you just did? We carried about 400-gallon diesel fuel and put it in the basement of the church. And they're like, no, we didn't. I said, Basically, plastic is a solid form or a solidified form of diesel fuel, is basically what the plastic is. The foam rubber in your couches and everything else, the foam that's in these chairs. It's nice and comfortable to sit on, but in a fire situation, it is not good. So, why we don't have the time we had anymore to do what we need to do. Oh, I gotta find. The video I was looking. Supposed to be another one on here. I want to show quick. Supposed to be down in here. That one. It was on there. Christmas is getting closer. Some people still like the true Christmas tree. The timer here on the side, they lit a heating iron on there at 0. One minute. No. Not bragging a whole lot, but we do have a pretty good fire department here, but at 2 in the morning when the pager goes off, probably takes us 4 minutes to get out of bed, get your clothes on and drive and pick up down the fire station, put the key in the door. That just happened in 60 seconds. We're not even got our pants on yet and out our own door at home, so The importance of smoke detectors and that stuff and closing the door. If that happens in the living room, is the living room door shut, so it's separating me from the bedroom and giving me time to make a conscious decision of making a phone call and stuff like that. I think it's in this one. Come on, computer, you're slow today for some reason. This is the house fire we had about, I don't know, 3 years ago. The roof started to burn off. This side of the roof went up through the stairway and up into the upstairs. We ran out of water out in the country. Most all this fire right here, this house has got vinyl siding on it. This ball of fire right here is basically the vinyl siding burning, which is the same as the plastic chairs or whatever. We got water back to the scene about the time most of this vinyl siding burned off, and they had plywood sheeting behind the vinyl siding. That fire was about a fourth of what it is now, just getting rid of the vinyl siding that had dropped back, where it was actually burning wood, and it was a lot less fire to take care of. But that's one of our calls at wee hours in the morning and whatever, so the need to do what we do. Let's see. But understanding again the fires and what we're dealing with, stuff like that, and kind of what we're going after when the fire department comes around and asks for donations. Well, you got new truck and you got way more trucks than we used to have and stuff like that. Well, you think back to that house fire with the old couch and chair and the new upholstered furniture. We have to have bigger trucks that carry more water and more trucks to do that. Just about every fire we go to, if it turns out fairly major, like that picture, that's our biggest problem getting out there, is getting out of water. We had 4 different fire departments there that night hauling water for us. We still didn't have enough water. So the amount of heat energy that's being produced by these new fires is just crazy, that it takes that many gallons to be able to put them out and contain them, and the timeliness to get there and try and do our job. So before I get too much deeper into this, any questions from the crowd, comments that I can ask, or questions that you have? If I'm explaining this good enough, hopefully not scaring everybody too bad that you can sleep tonight, but I mean, it draws an awareness to what we're talking about, and I write articles every once in a while, put in the paper, and I think half of those just kind of go, yeah, okay, if I get time, or if I, whatever, but when you see real life of what we see, I think it makes a little difference of reality, and you don't have time. I mean, personal possessions, cats, dogs, I mean, you and the kids and whatever, get out, because you got anywhere between 30 seconds and about 2 minutes to get out when the smoke alarm goes off, if you're in the room of the origin of the fire. And if there's no door shut between you, it's not much longer than that. So we're gonna get more into understanding the fires, and I'm gonna get into the fire extinguishers, and we're gonna go do some fire extinguisher training. But all fires burn, they call the fire triangle, which is you have to have heat, you have to have oxygen, you have to have fuel. So the way fire extinguishers work is we're gonna eliminate one of those 3 sides. And water does a good job of that in ordinary combustible fires, because it's taking away the heat and it's also taking away the oxygen. Because when you spray water into a fire that's that hot, it turns the water to steam, which when water turns to steam, it converts into steam and expands 1,700 times. So I take 1 drop of water, becomes 1,700 times bigger than that drop of water. So when you spray 100-gallon water into a room, it becomes 17,000 gallon of water with that. So what the water's doing for us, but water doesn't work on all fires, and I'm gonna go into some of that with this, which is, this is an actual firefighter program that we teach the fire classes from. Basically, there are 4 types of classes of fire, and now they've added a 5th one, which is Class K, that wasn't there probably 20 years ago. They decided they need to add a Class K fire extinguishers, and for a Class K fire. Class A is your ordinary combustibles, which multiple different extinguishers will work on that. Some examples of that are the fuel would be textiles, paper, wood, plastic, to an extent, wood, leaves, shrubbery, anything ordinary that's gonna burn fits into that, wood, plywood, whatever. The next class is the class B, which is a fuel fire, which is gas, diesel fuel, the fuel oils and stuff like that, into there, which you don't wanna use a, water extinguisher on, like the lady that had the pot on the stove burning, because that fuel's gonna float, the water's gonna splash in. When you put the water, another way it does that, you don't have to put that much water into that fire, but the expansion rate of that water when it gets that hot, if that's boiling that hot, over 212 degrees, it's gonna expand that. So the steam conversion there's helping push that fuel out of that pot also with that. So a class B, you're gonna use like a dry chemical extinguisher, which is typically like the library has here, and we're gonna go over those, but it would work on an A, B, where the water you're not going to be able to. The class C extinguisher is basically an A or B material burning, and we put electrified, energized electricity with it. So you're not gonna use water. If you got a fire burning, that's the class A material, but there's electricity involved in it, you're not gonna use the water can, because you're gonna get the shock back, transfer back to you through the water stream. So again, they call an ABC extinguisher, which is the dry chemical. Most of you have seen those, it's the white powdery stuff that comes out of the extinguisher when you pull that, and that's the ABC extinguisher. Class D is a flammable metals, which if you think like Miller's Blacksmith or something, it's basically the aluminum, magnesium, titanium, all the are a flammable metal that will burn, and especially once they run on like a lathe or a grinder where you're getting the small fragments of that metal, drilling or whatever, where it's gonna start with that. Once it starts with those, it burns and those metals get going, they get very hot. Flammable metals will burn up to 4,000 degrees, and that's almost impossible to put out. The class D extinguisher is basically a dry powder, and there's different powders for what metal would be to burn it, but basically you go up there and you cover it, it smothers, it bakes into like a crust, and it smothers and takes the air away from it. We've had those on car fires. A lot of the new cars now, to try and get better fuel mileage, they're putting titanium or magnesium mounts that hold the radiator and stuff in to less weight than steel. If the car starts on fire, it gets hot enough, they're probably 1/8 of an inch thick up in the front hood, and they'll burn those when you spray that with water. The expansion of the water, and it's trying to turn to hydrogen because it's so hot, but it just throws off sparks like fireworks on the 4th of July, and those little 4,000 degree sparks shooting off everywhere. The class K extinguisher is a class K, which is the purple K. Class K is the cooking oil fires, like a grease deep fryer at the bowling alley, or the turkey cookers in somebody's backyard or stuff like that, which they had to classify those because they don't really fit into any of the other classes. So that's where they changed the class K extinguisher and what you can use to be able to put those out. And again, not overfilling the dealer, kicking the thing over or whatever with those to, I'll go through some of these. I'm gonna skip, some are here, but again, the ordinary is gonna extinguish with water, or you can add a class A foam to it with water, which makes the water hang on to the product more. Basically, the class A foam is basically like dish soap. It makes it more sticky so the water doesn't run off, and it grabs onto it long enough to help the water soak into the material. These I pretty well went over. There's your cooking, class K. Some of this is non. There's a water can extinguisher, a class A extinguisher, right there, and they're putting out an ordinary fire with some paper and a little bucket or whatever there to do that. Again, that's not gonna be used on a class B or a class C fire. So teach you how to run a fire extinguisher, but you have to understand the fire you're going to fight, or try to fight with that. And that brings up another point. Once you grab that extinguisher, before you do that, you have to ask yourself a question of fight or flight. Do I flee and get out of here and call the fire department, which you need to do that anyway, or are you gonna fight? What is your capability of that, of you and the capability of the extinguisher that you have in your hand? Are you gonna be able to do this? Are you putting yourself in harm's way? The small incipient stage of a fire, when it's small, garbage can size, yeah, you can do that. If the corner of the room's on fire and it's getting big in a hurry, is that extinguisher big enough to do what we're trying to do? There is the, ooh, that's a halon, let me skip, not that one, I don't want that. Another one is the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. The Mid-America trucks carry those for the natural gas fires if they get a fire around a gas deal. CO will put out fires, but it has no cooling. It doesn't cool anything, so it doesn't work real well on a Class A fire. Basically, it puts the fire out by taking away the oxygen side of the triangle. It's smothering the fire. Well, if it's wood that's burning, I can smother the fire and take the fire away from the wood, but when the CO is gone, gets oxygen back, the wood retains the heat, so it's gonna reignite. So it's not gonna be a very good option in a wood, paper type fire that holds some residual heat in there with that type of extinguisher. So why we have multiple different ones with that. The CO extinguisher, you're gonna notice by the horn, it's got a funnel or a big end on the end of the hose to let that out of there. And the deal with that is, it's stored in a pressurized container. Anything that's pressurized, when you take a gas or whatever and you compress it, it gets warm. When you release that pressure, it gets cold. So they have the big funnel type thing on the end, so it doesn't auto-refrigerate and freeze the end of the nozzle shut when it releases that, is what that's for. But you can tell the CO extinguishers, they all have this big funnel type flared out deal on the end versus the ABC extinguishers are more just like a hose. The dry chemical. Somewhere I got pictures of those. There's a Class D metal one that's got the dry powder in it and different ones for different applications. There's your classes of the extinguishers. So you can see those, and on the side of your extinguisher at home or at work or wherever you can see that. But there's the identification of what will be on there. It tells you what that extinguisher is good for. If it's a Class A material, the Class B is your flammable liquids, C is energized electric, D is the metals, and K again is the cooking oil. So typically you're gonna see the ABC on there with the dry chemical extinguisher is gonna have the ABC rating on those, which will do any of the ordinary things that are gonna be burning around here. So once you take away the Class C electricity doesn't burn. It's either an A or a B that's burning, but there's some electricity involved. So once you take away the electricity, get it shut off, it's basically an A or a B that's doing the burning. So if that makes sense to everybody. Any questions with that? I'm going through this kind of quick, but I don't want to waste everybody's whole afternoon. Is questions with the extinguishers, or does that make sense? Anybody have a?
You carry those extinguishers on your trucks then too?
Oh yeah, we've got probably 15 extinguishers on the fire trucks. Different water cans and the ABC. Typically, we don't have any of the CO extinguishers because they're, for our application, they're not really relevant. The other thing with the CO extinguisher, the CO2 extinguisher, today it's useless. You just will leave it hanging in the truck because with the wind blowing, it's just a cloud of CO2 gas. Well, the wind's blowing, it's going here instead of there. You can get right up to the fire and spray it on there, and in 2 seconds the wind's gonna blow it away. So it's about gonna be useless today in the wind. It's a non-windy or an interior application a lot of times. So today the wind's gonna be a struggle with anything you're trying to fight a fire with. I mean, the wind's just gonna blow whatever you're shooting a different direction. So. Questions with that? More? Jim, looks like you got a question, or you're just.
Well, what do you suggest for all our homes? Which
Home is an ABC typically,
okay.
And they used to have some, they've kind of quit, but they used to have like a little foam extinguisher that was kind of a foam deal for kitchen use, but the ABCs are gonna work on like a kitchen fire, your stove fires and stuff like that. They're gonna be a mess. I mean, it's like taking a chalk eraser and just shaking everywhere, and it does create a inhalation, breathing issue with that. The other thing too, we're gonna go over once we do the extinguishers, we're gonna do a test before you actually do it. But with that ABC extinguisher, the reach of that is like 6, 8 feet probably. So I don't wanna come up to the pan here and squeeze too close, cause just the force of that pressure coming out is gonna blow the oil out of the pan or whatever is that way. So understanding the reaches of an extinguisher too with that. The water cans, they'll probably shoot from me to the door we come in over here with the water pressure cans, so they got a lot more reach, but they're only good on one product basically, you know, the Class A stuff, so. The small ABCs are, you know, pretty typical for the house. And, once you discharge that ABC, it's a powdery chemical that's inside there, but there's a ball cork in there that seals up to hold the pressure in there, and once you release, squeeze that handle, release that, even if you only drain 10% out of that extinguisher, you have to get it recharged, because some of that powder gets between the ball and the seat, and you let it sit for 2 hours, and that pressure's gonna release out. You still got a can full of powder, but there's no pressure left, because it won't seal. So they're a one-time use, and you recharge them for whatever it takes to recharge them, because they won't reseal. The water can, I can squeeze it like a garden hose. You squeeze it and shut it off, and it holds the pressure, because it's just water, and there'll seal against the ball and the seat. But the dry powder extinguishers are a one-time getting them recharged.
Are they recharging small fire extinguishers again?
Say again, Kerry?
Are they recharging small fire extinguishers?
Yes, the thing that's changed with them, we typically get Feld to do it. Well, there's been a few fire extinguisher companies that went out of business, and insurance and liability reasons, Feld will refill them or recharge them if they are their brand or a production brand. If there's somebody else's brand or something that's not, we've had fire extinguishers they were General brand. General went out of business. If you have a General fire extinguisher, once you discharge it, you throw it away, because nobody will take the liability to fill a General fire extinguisher again. So they're going.
Filling them for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah, and they still do, and depends on, typically the smaller ones, they don't, because they're making them cheaper to sell more of them, and the small ones are a crimped on or pressed on valve on top, and those are one-time use, and you get rid of them. The bigger ones typically have a threaded on top, the ones they can unthread. Once they go to recharge them, they will hydro test that cylinder to make sure it holds pressure, you don't have a weak spot or a crack in the cylinder. Then they'll refill it with the powder and then put the pressure dispersing agent in there and recharge them. They're probably, well, the ones we got are like the 20 pounds, they're like $35, $40 to get them refilled once you use them, so it's a little bit expensive. But they will and they do, but that's kind of the reason they didn't, because they're going through these changes and companies were going out of business, and the insurance company started saying, we're not liable for somebody else's product that you don't have or is not made, and so it's kind of that type of a deal with that. Other questions with extinguishers? Oh, what else I got in there? Oh, it's ratings of extinguisher. Don't really know. There's your dry chemical extinguishers can be damaged. There's the one with the X on it's your dry chemical look. There's your water can with that, with just the normal. This one looks the same, but this got like a Class K in it. You can tell the nozzles here is a little bit different. This is an aerator. On the end of the hose, when it discharges here, this venturies some air through that little cone piece there and actually puts a little bit of a foam to it, kind of with that to with the Class K, with the purple K. This is your ABC. They got it so small I can't. Yeah, right here, these little pictures is typically where you'll see if they don't have ABC on it, they got a picture of a garbage can, then they got like some oil, then they got a plug-in or like some electricity that's good for electrical equipment. So we'll have those on there. Here's maybe a little better, I can't blow it up any bigger than that, but you can see they got the picture, so it's not in wording or whatever that people can't understand. And again, there's your CO2 extinguisher with the bigger horn on it. I think we're about to the end of what I wanted to show on this. Try to pick through this slide. There's some inspections. To operate an extinguisher right here, expand it just a little bit, it's moving.
It's like a church, Greg.
But there, that's big enough for everybody to see, but PASS is the acronym, which is you grab the extinguisher if you decided that you're gonna fight this fire and not flight and leave. So you grab that extinguisher, the first thing you do is grab it, and that little pin in the side, you pull that pin out, which is a safety that you can't just squeeze the handle by carrying it. So you have to pull that little pin out of the handle, and then aim, which is see the fire, and you aim at the fire. And then the first S is squeeze, and then the sweep is sweep the base of the fire. You want to shoot the fire extinguisher at the base. The flame, a lot of people, untrained, unexperienced, want to shoot the flames that are up here. The flame is post tense, or however you want to say it, it's done, it's happened, it's over. The gas is burnt, you're just wasting extinguishing agent, putting extinguishing agent on the flames up here. The fire is burning at the base down to the bottom, so you want to sweep at the base with the fire extinguisher toward the base of the fire is where the heat's being produced. So that makes sense to, and once I talk about that or say that, this pass, the first thing I'm gonna do is a test squeeze. Before I get too close to that, two reasons I'm gonna do that. One, I wanna make sure the thing works before I walk up to the fire, and two, I'm gonna see how far it shoots. Because I'm going to shoot at the fire from the furthest, safest distance away from the fire. If that thing's going to shoot from here to the front door, I'm going to stand this far away. I'm not going to walk up 2 feet from the fire and be right nose to nose with it using the fire extinguisher. So a couple reasons to have the test. One, to make sure it works, and two, how far away can I do what I'm trying to do. So they had that last fall over in Eddie Grove, the John Deere shop. They had a small fire in the John Deere shop that got a little bigger than they wanted to, because they grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall and went and grabbed another one, finally got the third one, I think it was, to work. So by the time they found the third extinguisher on the other corner of the shop, it was a little bigger than they wanted it to be. I think I'm pretty well done in here, unless anybody has more questions.
Greg, how do you know when your fire extinguisher is outdated, or, I think I've got 2 or 3 at the house and I think they're old. They probably wouldn't work if I needed them.
No wonder it wasn't, I was trying to update. Mainly, I'll show you when we get over the station, but there's a pressure gauge in the center. It's gonna tell you if it has pressure.
Oh.
And that's 90% a good answer that it's gonna work. The ones over in why I brought that up, the ones over in John Deere last year, the needle said it had pressure, but for who knows what reason, when they squeezed them, they didn't work. So it should work when it says in pressure. We have, Feld comes around every year with the fire department and the city's extinguishers, and they inspect them every year. Once they get so old, they gotta take them in and they empty them, and then they pressurize the tank to make sure the tank isn't gonna have a pressure problem with a crack or breaking or something like that. But,
When I did it OD at Avco, I had to tip them upside down and tap them with a rubber hammer on the bottom every 2 months.
yeah, they say that the dry chemical is a dry, like talcum powder type material inside there. You do that on the wall, I'm sure in the factories. It's more important, like I carry one in my pickup, when it's driving down the road and bouncing and beating and whatever, that just keeps compressing and shaking and getting tighter in there. So sometimes when you go to squeeze it, and that could be what happened at John Deere, it gets hard like a rock in the bottom. It's not a loose granular powder when it sits and shakes or moves and stuff like that. So tip them upside down, beat them where it breaks that stuff loose. So when you squeeze it, what it's doing is trapping all the powder on the bottom. The pressure's on the top. Well, the straw is at the bottom. So if it's in that solid powder, you squeeze the nozzle, it's not going to do anything. So it doesn't hurt to tip them upside down. I know if they're in a vehicle being carried, you sure want to do that. But even on the wall, and that could have been what happened in Ivy Grove carrying with those if they hadn't been inspected or somebody does that. But some reasons that they might not, if they got pressure but they didn't work, even with the pressure. Any other questions, comments, more stuff you wanna hear, more stuff you don't wanna hear from me, quiet? I guess everybody brought a coat. The rest of the presentation is gonna be at the fire station with some hands-on stuff, if anybody's interested, actually run a fire extinguisher, and I do have the, smokehouse over there that we had the little kids crawl through, if anybody's interested in experiencing, some smoke in a room. Basically, it's a little hot plate in there that we do, and it's basically vegetable oil that hits on a hot plate and creates a white, hazy kind of smoke that not supposed to be bad for you or harmful. It's not a toxic or anything else, but, see some of that. You already got my picture. Well, I'm gonna break that camera, Dwayne.
Need your pictures in for the paper.
Okay.
I got yours already, so I'll get these guys now. Thank you.
Any other questions before we go over there? Whoever wants to come over and experience the other half of the hands-on, it'll be 15, 20 minutes, be about done. It's not gonna take too long, so.